You're listening to The Echoes with me, Emily Andrew, the self-development podcast that explores personal stories, powerful tools, and an insight into the wide world of mental, physical, and spiritual health. Get ready to get curious, be inspired, and connect in. My guest on the podcast this week is the wonderful Elizabeth Reah. Elizabeth is a musician and vocalist, and her sound creations are truly a unique experience. She's a classically trained musician and has sung all over the world and performed in prestigious venues such as St. Paul's Cathedral, the Purcell Room, live on Radio 3, as well as festivals and many other events, both in person and online. Elizabeth now focuses on improvised, ethereal vocal music. Her wordless creations focus on the power of music and song in transcending the need for the words. Her voice seeks to take the listener on a journey beyond the ordinary, beyond the mind, and beyond this realm. Her sound journeys are known for their profound healing quality, bringing light to the darkness, joy into the sadness, comfort and solace during the challenging times of life, and hope when things may feel lost. Elizabeth's music is often interwoven into other healing modalities such as breathwork, meditation, ceremonies, or other events, and her music can be licensed, or she'll often attend live. She also creates music, meditations, and song for children's mental health and well-being, and has launched an app called Sonics. I absolutely adored this conversation. I can't wait for you to listen to it. So let's dive in. So I am super, super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you, love?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you. I guess the best place to start, I always want to just dive in, but the best place to start is for people that haven't heard of you before, don't know you. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Of course. So thank you so much for having me here, first and foremost. So my name is Elizabeth Reah, and I am a vocalist and musician. I was in the corporate space for many years, most recently as a head of HR in an investment bank. And in 2020, I left that career and decided to go back to my love of music and singing, which is something I was so passionate about when I was a child. So I work with both adults and children, and really using music as a way in which to find more balance, more harmony, more peace, more joy, more celebration in our lives.
Oh, I love it. And I came across you at the Big Retreat. Anyone that's listened to this podcast knows that festival has got such a place in my heart. It's ridiculous. But it's one of those things where we met, and you're just a wonderful human. But it feels like, and I don't know if you feel like this or not, but it feels like you've just exploded this year in like the best way. And you're collaborating and you're doing all of these amazing things. And it's just been so wonderful to see. I mean, how have you, does that feel like an accurate reflection of your work at the moment, or?
Yes, and I was so grateful for that reflection, Emily. So thank you so much. I think prior to the Big Retreat, coming out of the corporate world, I was so confident in that space. And it was something I'd known for the best part of 14 years. And whilst I had been in quotations, a professional singer when I was young, coming back into this with a very, very different feeling, intention, coming back into music, I was really nervous to share. And one of the things that I really struggled with was being on camera. And that's, a story that we may or may not get to in this podcast, but I was living in the north coast of Scotland, just kind of working with this music again and learning really how to sing again. But I'd been very, very quiet and very nervous to share. And then suddenly this opportunity for the big retreat came about, and I was like, can I really do this? And when they asked me to also share the voice on the main stage, I was like, no way can I do that. Like, people are going to be taking pictures of me. But I just knew that this wasn't about me any longer, that I needed to share this music with other people, to serve them, for them to hear something that could give them more peace, could give them joy, could reach them, and reach them at a deep level with their emotions on their particular journey. So you are right that since the big retreat, it just gave me such a beautiful lift that was like, it's okay to be public with this, it's okay to journey this way. And it was really beautiful that through the big retreat, I also met an amazing guy who I know you know, Ben Bidwell, who does breath work. Ben is just a miraculous human. And he heard me singing on the stage, and he connected with me. And that's where our collaborations were born from. So it's been such a beautiful experience. And from there, I've just learned gently, gradually, with patience for myself, to not be afraid to share this gift, this service with the world. So it's been an incredible, 8 months since the big retreat, something like that?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's been an incredible 8 months of just expansion and learning and trust and faith and connection. So it's been a beautiful time.
Yeah, it's been beautiful to witness.
Thank you.
How would you describe your music then? Because I think quite a lot of the time when we talk about music, it's such a wide thing, isn't it? How would you describe the way that you connect with music and what that is in your world?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So I think traditionally, and I don't by any means want to pigeonhole anybody, but I think when people think of sound healing, which they do identify me with sound healing, is a lot of the time we might think of beautiful crystal sound bowls, gong baths, all of that amazing music, which I also offer. But I think what is perhaps unique with what I do is that it's very vocal based. So singing is my greatest passion. Singing is my greatest joy. And I really do believe that the voice for me is the most magical instrument, because it's the only one that comes direct from the human body. And so I feel so passionate about sharing this and helping other people connect with their voices. So the way I would describe my music is, although it is sound healing, it's rooted in frequency, and many people may understand frequency. So a lot of the music that I create is 432 hertz, which is the resonant frequency of Mother Nature. But the voice transforms it into something quite unique. And all my music is improvised. So all my vocals are improvised in the moment. So I've never written anything down. It's all just a kind of one take wonder, so to speak. And I really feel that what's unique about that is that even my professional recordings are one take, no edits. And so for me, it's really a channel. It's a transmission from, whether one wants to call it God, the creator, the divine source, Mother Nature, it is just that. And I've tried to retain it to be as raw and pure as possible. But I think there's no genre that it fits in, but if we had to give it one, it's probably kind of ethereal, choral. It's really hard to describe, actually.
Yeah.
But
I guess that's the
sums it up.
beauty.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It has a cinematic edge to it. So some of the music that I am currently creating is for movie soundtracks and gaming. So it can move into that slightly more kind of intensified cinematic genre as well. But I think what I'm mainly known for is, I would say, ethereal sounds.
This is an aside, but I'm just getting an idea of all these like gamers on like whatever it is, Skyrim or something, I don't know, but then unknowingly getting this like amazing sound healing while they're doing it at the same time.
That's definitely
beautiful.
the
Yeah.
That's definitely
Beautiful
the aim.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Um, I have so many questions. Because I just find it fascinating. You know, I don't know, can I say, yeah, I guess I can. I have come from a background of like performance and singing, and so it's something that's really dear to my heart. But and you know, I've been to sound baths, but I'd love to know more about, you know, frequency and understand that and how that might support somebody. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for people who don't know or
Of
aren't
course.
into that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in summary, and I don't want to get too scientific into this, but I think in summary, sound is vibration. And we as beings are made up of vibration. Everything within us is energy and vibration. That's not just us, the world, everything, Mother Nature, everything is energy, everything is vibration. And if we go back to quite a famous saying from, say, Nikola Tesla, he said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration. And for me, music is an audible representation of just that. It is the secret of the universe. And it's so easily understood by us because sound is like sound going into us it's a mega portal to the brain. It goes right deep into us. It's a very audible thing. And so we identify with it so deeply. But I think on a more subtle level, I mean, you can look at different studies like Dr. Emoto did studies of sound on water, and somatics is the study of how sound and vibration affects. I'm not an expert in somatics, but how it affects patterns on matter. And what it's really starting to prove is that sound has the ability to literally shift and change the molecular structure of our cellular being. So if you look at the work that Dr. Emoto did and you apply certain frequencies to bodies of water and then freeze it, if you play certain music to it, and no offense to anyone who loves heavy metal, but the study does give an example of that, where it freezes in brown unsymmetrical patterns. But if you play it a beautiful symphony, it freezes in the most intricate, beautiful symmetrical patterns. And so that's going on a complete cellular level. And if you look at, say, 432 hertz, which I mentioned I use a lot, 432 hertz is the resonant frequency of Mother Nature. And Mother Nature is in balance, it's in harmony, it works. And so if we can expose our beings, our cells, our bodies, our auras, our spirits to 432 hertz, on a cellular level, it's bringing us back into harmony, balance, and symmetry, which is where we're most healthy, aligned, and I would go as far as to say happy.
Mm.
And I think one of the most beautiful things about music is that it speaks to the cells and to the soul. And it almost bypasses the need for the mind to be involved because it's a completely beautiful passive practice. You can sit and listen to beautiful frequency music and you don't have to do anything. It works with you on a subtle subconscious level without your need for participation or involvement, which is when people are going through extreme trauma or they're suffering with anxiety, even stress, depression, sometimes the thought of actively doing something can just be too much. And this is where I feel music comes in, is that it can reach you when you can't do anything else, when you just need to be, and it will work with you in those subtle, beautiful, deep places. And that's why it's so profound. So I hope that answers the question.
No, it does, and it makes so much sense. And yeah, I knew this conversation was going to be good. And it makes so much sense. And one of my favorite things to do, and I've actually done it with your music as well, is just to sit and tap to music. Um, I've always found for me singing musicals and going into the emotion of those songs or using the songs as a vehicle to express the emotions that I have has always been something that I will always go back to. And you know, to tap and listen to music at the same time. You don't have to be a singer. You don't have to have any, you know, you could argue that everyone is a singer, but that's probably a whole nother conversation. But you don't have to do anything. You just have to be present. And I think that that is such an amazing gift. I have a question about the frequency and when it comes to voice, because I think with man-made instruments, where they, you know, they test the frequencies of things, and does the human voice have a certain frequency, or can it go through a range of different frequencies, or is that a question that makes sense? I don't know.
It absolutely is. And my answer might be a bit controversial for people that are really well versed in the science of this. So I believe, this is just my truth, that the human voice's true frequency and healing capability is changed by a person's intention and heart. Is that anybody can sing a beautiful song, but if that's coming from, but if we change that to be a place of absolute love and humility, that energy, again, it comes back to the conversation of energy and vibration. The frequency of that is of pure love and is of pure service and is of pure compassion. And so we as human beings have the ability. This is why I believe so much in the power of the voice, so much, not just sung, but also spoken, is we can speak words of hatred or we can speak words of love. And the energy and the frequency of that are two completely different things. And so when we move into song, for example, I believe that song naturally elevates our frequency anyway, because it's really hard to shout a really angry, it's really hard to swear at somebody, for example. When you use the power of beautiful song, it's really hard to be angry when you start singing, for example. But I really believe that the frequency is changed by the energy and the intention of what we're trying to transmit. So if we ourselves can come into a place of desire to serve and be compassionate and loving towards others and our world, the frequency of that will be of that.
See, okay, so
does that make sense?
Yeah, so it sounds like the frequency isn't a predetermined thing in the voice. It's not like you can say the voice is 432 hertz or whatever. Like it's like it changes depending on the intention that person puts behind whatever they're performing or creating.
I'm sure there's a test that you can do to, ultimately the scales in music is predetermined frequencies. The A has been tuned to, it was 432, but it was quite a while back retuned to 440, which is not so healthy on the body. So naturally certain notes will be different frequencies, but I think it's far more subtle than that. It's far less, it's something beyond what our minds can comprehend. Is that how do we describe the kind of frequency and vibration of an emotion? It's the same thing. And that's why voice as an instrument is so incredible, because it can change dependent upon the intention of the singer or the speaker. And how beautiful is that? Like, we as human beings, not just myself as a singer, but we as human beings have the ability to affect and cause ripples of beauty in our world just by using our voice. Like, that to me is just beyond incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like what you said as well about, one take wonders. Because I think there is so much perfectionism when it comes to creation. And I definitely, I don't really do much anymore, but I have definitely been somebody who would just
analyze, oh, I could have done this better, or I could have, if I tweaked that little bit, or if I changed the sound of the like, and I think we do that in daily life as well.
Mhm.
But actually the perfectionism of just being like just creative creation, like just
Mm.
allowing the imperfect, perfect to be as is. I think that that's such a wonderful gift because otherwise you could just end up never releasing anything because nothing will ever be good enough kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
I love this point as well because I was classically trained. And so perfectionism was literally everything. And as a child, I was under so much pressure to perform. I was a cathedral chorister performing 25, 30 hours a week, whilst I was between 10 and 14 years old. And my goodness, you were not allowed to make a mistake. And it was really heavy. It was really heavy. And when I came back to singing in 2020, I was like, how do I find freedom in this kind of striving for structure and perfectionism? And I was creatively like completely stuck for a while because I believed that I couldn't improvise. And so I was like, well, how am I meant to sing now? Because I don't want to sing songs from a sheet of, music without any kind of creative ability to change and shift things. But I also don't know how to improvise. And the only way I can describe this is it was a miraculous shift in literally one day when I just surrendered to the art and I surrendered to a power greater than me and said, this voice is not really of mine. It's a divine or of God or the creator or of Mother Nature even. It's a gift. And actually I get in the way quite a bit. Like my ego really gets in the way when I try and make it perfect. And so when I started improvising, I just realized that it was such an incredible reflection of the way we live our lives, is that we want everything to be structured and perfect and in control. But actually, there's so much beauty in release. There's so much beauty in freedom. There's so much beauty in being perfectly imperfect. And it just takes off the pressure so much. And if there is a mistake, it's a reminder of our humanness. It's where the divine meets the human. The voice is for me the divine. The perceived mistakes are the human. And it's such a, I've always committed to retaining that purity of the creations, because also I don't want someone to come and watch me live and it sound completely different to what my recordings sound like. I really felt that they needed to sound the same, and I hope that they do.
mm, yeah. So what took you away from singing? If you like, what was it that was it just kind of life? The shoulds, like I should go get a real job, or I should, what was it? Did it feel like something quite natural for you, or?
No, not really. And it was quite subtle. And I'll be very open about this. I think when I was a teenager, actually, maybe even before that, there was and you might have experiences like this, but I think because I was quite out in the open in my schooling, because I was always performing, I experienced a lot of bullying. And I think when it's so related to that, it it caused a disconnect with the singing. And I, as a child, I kind of almost said to myself, if you keep singing, you'll keep getting bullied. And I think that was the first disconnect that started to happen even at like 14, 15. And I stopped saying yes to concerts and things that people really wanted me to do, but I just felt so exposed and I just didn't want any more reasons to give people to be nasty. I just couldn't cope anymore. And so that was the first disconnect. And then, very honestly, when I went to London to be a singer, it was quite financially difficult to create a living. I hadn't lived in London before with singing. So initially, I wanted to just get a job, to support the singing and have two different, ways of expressing. But investment bank, I don't blame investment banking. I take full responsibility for it. But I got into, it was a really dark time. And, you know, I succumbed to the challenges of that industry. I was drinking a lot. I was taking a lot of drugs. And I just completely lost myself, my essence, my gift, my peace, and almost my life. And it took a long time to come back to it. You know, that was when I was 22, and I came back to singing 3 years ago at the age of 37, 36. So it took a long time to come back to it, and that's really what happened with the disconnect of it.
Mm-hmm. It's so hard, isn't it? Because sometimes the healing process from that and reconnecting must have been so difficult, but also so, like, I can't think of the word, but like so valuable as well. Like, because it sounds like you took all of that and the healing that you did yourself and then brought that into what you do now.
Mm.
And I think that that is when the true power of the gifts that we're given are like unleashed, if you like, because I think that that is something to that it sounds like the alchemy of that has become like the dust, the sparkly dust on top of the gift that you already had that makes it even brighter and even more incredible and able to do all of the things that you can do. When you, because you do have a focus now, part of your focus, I should say, it's not all of, but you are very passionate about creating things for children, aren't you?
Yes, it's something I do a lot of, yes.
Is that something that has come from your own experiences, or is that because you've noticed that there is a real need for that, or a bit of both?
I think it's both. It's definitely both. You know, one of the things that, you know, I struggled as a child a lot with a lot of abandonment issues, and I was very lost. I have an amazingly beautiful mother who I am so blessed for, but it doesn't always, you know, mean that we don't have other traumas, other abandonment. I had a really, really traumatic childhood in many ways. And one of the things I'm really, really passionate about is working with children who have perhaps lost their parents or they're in foster care. I know what that abandonment feels like. You know, my dad left before I was born, and I was a very, very lost soul when I was a child, a really, really lost soul. And I felt completely worthless and so unlovable. That's really the best way I can describe it. And I truly never want the thought of other children, and there are so many children going through this, even more now than I believed then. And if somehow the work that I do can be of support, I've created an app with my incredible collaborator Craig Young, and if that can in any way reach just a few children, to give them comfort that there is light in that darkness, that they are deserving of love, even if they have been abandoned, that they are worthy of a life of happiness and connection, and they're deserving of people who care for them. I mean, that to me is one of the greatest things that I hope that I can do with this work as well. I love working with adults too. I love working with all people, but children are our future, and our future could look very, very different and so much more beautiful if we had happier, more connected, more loved, more more children that believe in themselves and their passions, their dreams, their gifts. You know, if we were formed of a world where everybody shone our beautiful gifts, because we all have one, we all have a unique one, and it's as valuable as the next, and it's as important as the next. If we could build a generation of children, or many generations of children, that felt empowered to share all of that, can you imagine what the world would look like?
I know, it'd be insane. And I think there is a bit of a movement in trying to nurture the child to be themselves more than fitting into what they should be or do. I think that there are, you know, I try as a mother, but I also know many people that are more honoring of who their child is instead of trying to create a miniature version of themselves. But yeah, with that on a much bigger, grander scale would just be so just so needed as well, I think. And I think that the fact that the work that you do, you can see your intention in everything that you do, and it's more about the creation of it and the sharing, the connection, the authenticity of it than the end result. That's what I feel like the result that you get from, you know, exploding in such a wonderful way is brilliant, but it feels like that's a bonus. The actual real creation of it and the production and the meaning and intention behind it is really what fills you up. Do you ever find that because I'm just thinking there's quite a lot of the tortured artist views, isn't there? Where, you know, you have to be tortured to be able to create good art. But I feel like you are creating incredible things without the need for that. Does that feel true, or do you feel like, I don't know?
I love
What's
the
your
fact
experience?
I love the fact that you've asked that. We haven't planned any of these questions. I'll just say that. And so that's a really, really interesting one, because some of the comments, particularly, I've had a comment that says some of your music is just so beautifully agonizing. You know, some of the tracks that I create, and they're like, it's almost so beautiful that it is agonizing. And I kind of understand that. And I think some of that creation does come from the sheer like amount of pain I've felt. But I would say that's really, really shifted. Is that I think that's a beautiful way. And if we all as beings can utilize these really painful moments that we've had to soften us, to bring more humility, more compassion, more beauty into what we do now, that's wonderful. And that's the gift, right? That's the gift of suffering. That's the beauty of suffering, the beautiful side of it. But I feel like now there's so much more joy and celebration in what I create. There's a lightness that has come into it now, because we're never complete with our healing or our journey ever. But I just feel that there's so much gratitude to be had in this work. And rather than remaining in that pain state, I want to help others. If I can't remove myself from that pain state and elevate myself and expand myself out of that, if we want to use that phrase, tortured artist state, how can I support anybody else in coming out of that too? And I feel like it's my responsibility to come into a place of celebration, joy, and gratitude. Not every single moment of the day. I still struggle too. But it's really to show that the joy of the process, and help and if I can support others in coming to that place as well. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think it's the duality of being able to acknowledge what you've been through and use that understanding that emotion, but not getting bogged down in it, being able to, you know, transfuse it with joy and love and compassion, which I think is a step away from the idea of the traditional tortured artist, isn't it? Because the tortured artist is very much like, you have to keep going. You have to stay in the mud, like, to be able to give true, raw, real emotion and passion. And actually, I think that that's not true. I really believe it with the creative people that I work with my work, but we don't have to suffer in order to create true, beautiful art. You know, there will always be an element of suffering because that is humanity, that's being a human. But it's about being able to kind of transfuse that with the love and the joy and the celebration, like you said. And I think that that's a really beautiful way of looking at it.
I agree.
Yeah, we really didn't plan any of these questions. It's just my pure curiosity. So you mentioned about not wanting to be on camera. I'm interested to know more if you want to share more, because I think that that is something that a lot of people probably would relate to.
Okay, so the bullying that I mentioned earlier started really young, and it was all related to how I looked, all of it. While some of it might be directed at my singing, you know, and my musical, it was all related to how I looked. And I kind of laugh at this now, but it was very real. You know, I used to research like plastic surgeons constantly when I was a teenager about how somebody could take the kink out of my nose. And there wasn't, I don't believe this is an exaggeration. There wasn't really a half an hour that would go by when it wasn't in my thoughts or in my mind. And at times, you know, it was there constantly. And the bullying was just so ingrained in me that I was genuinely an ugly individual. And for years, I used to, you know, if I was out with friends, and I could not be around somebody who got their camera out or their phone out or anything in case they snapped me from the side, because I was just completely just so affected by this, you know, this bump in my nose. And I remember it, I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning his name. It was this really lovely guy that I used to work with. His name is Christopher August. He's an incredible breathwork facilitator as well. I'm surrounded by these beautiful breathwork facilitators, and he said, I want to see more of you. I believe it was Christopher August. And he said, I want to see more of you. I kept putting my voice to beautiful landscape videos. He said, but where are you? No one's going to know that's you. And oh, I felt sick. I was like, I cannot put my face. Like, what if people say how ugly I am, how awful I look? Can I look at myself on Instagram? I mean, it's a pretty public platform. But I did. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard. And then I decided that I was going to have a photo shoot done. And it was the most uncomfortable thing I have ever done in my life. I cried. I mean, it made the photos very difficult to take because I was crying and crying, feeling so uncomfortable. It was just like I wanted the ground to swallow me up the whole time. And to be honest, it's still a journey now. You know, we just got back the photos and the videography from a beautiful event I did with Ben Bidwell last week, Alchemy, which is our kind of, it's something we do every few weeks in person and online. And I still go through the photos and judge myself and all the videos and be like, oh, that's not a great angle. Oh, my chin doesn't look very good. You know, and it's still a voice in my head. I just think that for me, when people said to me, your music has helped me, or your music gave me comfort, or I listened to your music in grief, or I was going through a heartache and a divorce and your music really soothed me, or my child just asks for you every night before they go to bed, sometimes realizing we have to get out of our own way. We see ourselves so differently to the way that other people see us. And it's not to say that I'm sure that no one's ever noticed that, you know, when I look down, I've got a little double chin, or the fact that, you know, no one's ever noticed the fact that I have a kink in my nose, but they're not judging me for it or thinking, oh, she's ugly. But sometimes I think the need to share and want to be of help to people, and knowing that it does, I just have to move every day really through that uncomfortable process. And every time I do it and face it, and you know, the old saying, face your fear and do it anyway, or feel the fear and do it anyway. If we can face it, we realize that it's really not as bad as the thought or the feeling was. So, yeah.
Do you find that it's getting easier as the more you do it?
Oh, I mean, 100% is when we've got these videographers in the room in alchemy. I do notice that occasionally, like, I'll look right at her direction when I'm not meant to be, obviously. So I'm like, oh, she's getting a bit close. But actually, I see the photos now and look at them with an essence of love and acceptance and appreciation, and realize that it's my lens upon which I look at life, and that there's so much more. And I think maybe I see more of my insides coming through the pictures, that I knew in that moment when she captured that I was in so much love and bliss and connection with the people in that room. That does it really matter? Does it really matter that I don't look perhaps the way that I think is perfection, you know? But I can see the essence now. So it is easier, and it gets easier every time. And every time I record a video, you know, to put out on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it might be, I judge it a little less.
I think that's such a needed thing, because I think so many people could relate to that. So many people. And it's like, is it Roald Dahl? Is it the Roald Dahl book, when it's like, if you think good thoughts, they shine out of your face like sunbeams or something. And I think that is so true, because we can so easily become our own biggest critic. And a lot of that comes usually from outside sources, kind of determining something that we then took on as a belief, as this is who I am, or this is, you know, I have so much evidence to prove that these things that I think about myself are true. But we get to a point where the outside sources stopped a long time ago. And actually, we're the ones that keep this belief going and keep, you know, doing the things that make us feel safer, which is usually going away from the kind of addressing or challenging that. But the fact that you've taken that step and you've been able to challenge it, and it's true that it's not an easy ride. Like, it's, you know, any kind of work or like mission or challenge that we face in life, there will always be some element of, this is really difficult. But I really love what you said about, like, the fact that you see what's behind that now, and that then helps to continue to build up all those positive experiences that help to really challenge that and allow you to show up as you, like really authentically you, and not you who is partly scared to hide away at the same time. And I think that's something that so many people can just take inspiration from, I think.
We hide so much of our beauty through fear of how we look. I think that's the thing, is that when I really, really ask myself this question, which is, how do you want people to remember you? And I put this to other people. How do you want people to remember you? From that person that looked really good in a photo, or that person that made me laugh, or the person that made me feel so loved, or so appreciated. I really believe if we all asked ourselves, anyone that struggles with perhaps being out in the public domain and is frightened to share their essence because they're worried about the way they look, is how do we, if we all asked ourselves that question, how do we want to be known and how do we want to be remembered? I think there's very few people that would answer because I looked really good in this photo or this video. It's how we impact people.
Yeah.
And we can't impact people in that beautiful way until it's not to say that we forget that challenge, but we move through it with compassion for ourselves, awareness, and just take those little steps. It just doesn't just disappear overnight. But with, just those little steps of bravery and courage, putting ourselves out there, I really believe we're rewarded in other ways.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Oh, I've just adored this whole conversation.
Me too.
So much. We just need to stretch. Oh, yeah, no, I was really looking forward to having you on because I think that there's a lot more people looking at sound healing and other alternatives to support them. Whether that just be just to support them generally or to support them with something specific. And I think sometimes with these things, there is so much mystery around it. And that can sometimes put people off because lots of people don't like the unknown. Some people will just dive into stuff and be like, yep, head first, let's go. Yeah, see what we find. But other people, the mystery of it can be really off-putting. And I think being able to just have this conversation has just been so great because you've answered questions that I have as well. I've been so interested in the work that you do. And when I remember at the big retreat, I think I was in my tent and I just heard your voice just carry over the valley and I was just like, oh wow, like this is something else. Like this is insane in a really good way. And yeah, I just really admire the work you do. I love that it is so unique and inspiring. And yeah, just thank you so much just for being you and for showing up and doing the scary thing and being seen because my God, is it worth it?
Just thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to meet you last year. It was just really, really incredible. And I also love the work that you do. It's so important. And I just want to touch on one thing. I think what was really amazing that you said is that when you're doing tapping and you listen to music at the same time, do you know that's the beautiful thing about bringing music into other beautiful healing modalities is music almost becomes like this kind of humble support to everything else that goes on, and it's a beautiful addition to everything. But I love the work that you do. You've been a real inspiration to me this year, real inspiration, because I see you showing up. I've seen so much of what you've done since the big retreat. And I love your softness and the way that you deliver your message. And it's really, really beautiful. So I'm grateful for you having me here and for talking through all things beautiful music and other things too.
Thank you so much.
You.
That really means a lot. How can people find you? Where can they go if they're like, look, I need some of this. I need some Elizabeth in my life. Where can they go?
You can find everything on my website, which is elizabethreah.com. If you have beautiful children, there's an app out now for children, which is free for 30 days. And there's so much coming on that app. From a sound healing perspective, you can do one-on-ones with me. Or perhaps if you'd like to combine that with breath work, myself and Ben Bidwell are offering monthly sessions. But all of it is on the website. So I would always be glad to hear from anybody. Reach out, even if you just want to have a conversation and you think I can support you in some way.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
And come to the big retreat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, come to the big retreat. I think I should have just got sponsored by the big retreat, to be honest. The amount of times I talk about it on this podcast, but
Brilliant. Love it.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.